Well, thank you for this great privilege to moderate this very high-powered session. We're going to discuss women in leadership and why there's a challenge of women making it to the boardroom. Let's start with some stats. Indian public relations entry-level workforce, 70% is what I have the data, which says 70% of entry-level workforce is women. But only 1 out of 3 at the top, in the executive leadership position or in the boardroom of the corporate communication world. Why? Prabhasha, we'll take each one of you to have a view, and then let's sort of flow from that conversation.
Okay, thank you first. Lovely to be here. This is actually one of my first ones, so really excited. I'm going to zoom out a bit, and the data that you talked about, I'm going to talk about women overall. According to McKinsey report, actually less than 20% women make it to the C-suite.
Yep.
And 1 in every 5, eventually, when they enter, there is parity. But as they grow up, the numbers keep dropping. If we really have to look at it, there are 3 things. One is structural barriers, in terms of whether the right opportunities, the level playing field is afforded to women. Are they given, acknowledging that even when they enter the workforce and there could be parity with the gender, from a gender point of view, why is there progress or why is there a leakage in the talent pipe? The second part of it is cultural. Often women in life stages, caregiving becomes very important, and that's where caregiving becomes a personal choice rather than systemic reality. And the third, unfortunately, it is a reality. Of course, we're getting better, it's evolving, but more in terms of personal barriers. Interestingly, I'll tell you about this example that, it was one of those things that happened many years ago. When a job comes out, and when a man looks at it, and he knows 4 things in the job description out of 10, he says, I'm ready. Women, when they don't know 2 things out of that list of 10, they impose restriction. There is always this softer aspect where self-doubt are really putting out themselves. A lot of them, simple things, it sounds very cliched in 2025, but the reality is salary negotiation. There are a lot of self-imposed restrictions that women really look at, they kind of give themselves. So if we really have to zoom out, we have to look at it from these 3 things.
So let me sort of paraphrase this. 3 things. 1, you're saying disparity. 2, culture. And 3, self-imposed restrictions.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 sort of mitigating factors for you. Dipti, what's your view?
So I would say we rather zoom in and zoom into the panel here. If these people have made it to the boardroom or have done really senior leadership roles, I think that is the opportunity. And I feel the other opportunities, as you rightly said, while there is a younger generation, but also the skew of women in public relations. And I know now the definition of PR is gone, right, or different. So if we are able to be in that ecosystem of communication, I feel the opportunity is much higher than before. I'll quote one of the data from the global PR, women's PR, which said that the domination of males in the boardroom has reduced in the last 1 year from 61% to 51%. So I would see, let us take this opportunity to see where women can move forward. One of the things, what Pasha said, completely agree to those things, but I feel we give up too easily. And I don't want this to be a discussion about men or women. I think whoever is a high performer, there is no looking back for them. They have to go up the ladder, and that is the real opportunity. So why the discussion of women in the boardroom? I know it's important culturally. India will be moving forward. There is a narrative about the country, the culture, and those kind of things as well. But I feel it's more like a equal gender discussion of high performers, and they need to take forward.
Okay. Parma, you had an interesting take on this subject.
Yeah. Thanks very much for inviting me and us for this discussion. Always good to meet industry colleagues. I'm going to turn this argument on its head. Because in PR and Comm, or even public policy, though a little less in public policy, the argument is reverse. Because there are more women in leadership than men. I mean, there's a case for reverse diversity here. Though I'm not a fan of making either color or gender as a success or enabling factor. Look at most of the PR firms today, or the large PR jobs today, are headed by women. I mean, whether many more women can succeed, to your point, from entry level to the top, a lot of people fall off. And to Vipasha's point and Dipti's point, there are self-created barriers there, which I do a lot of mentoring of both men and women. And I see how still women pull themselves back. This is data again, and saying that, whether I can, what about my balancing home and work, etc., where men are not even bothered. The questions that I get from similar level male executives are, how do I manage diverse teams? How do I build my personal brand? How do I extend my sphere of influence? These are leadership questions. And I mean, fewer women ask those things, which is really a self-created barrier. I'm not saying it's an ideal world. There are many, many structural barriers. But I think in PR and Comm, we have a unique opportunity where women are actually in better and bigger roles sometimes. And some male colleagues, I mean, I can even name them, they don't get the jobs they deserve simply because they are men. So that is not the ideal thing.
So it's an interesting
yeah,
point.
I mean, it's a reverse argument, but it's actually, if you look at data, it's true.
Absolutely. So Dipti, you said merit and resilience to stay the course is something that you think is the opportunity area. So you're sort of looking at it on the other side. But Roma, the interesting point you're making, besides the fact that don't give up and don't have self-doubt, you're saying, hey, there are times when you think the men miss out because there's a diversity sort of pressure to do something more for women, and therefore merit sort of sometimes get compromised. Just now you had something to talk about some of the issues around gender.
We'll need one line. Resilience is the biggest virtue and the biggest gift you can give yourself, regardless of your gender.
Right.
Pick yourself up, dust, and move on. Yeah, so, I mean, this is the biggest enabling factor to your point.
And I
Right.
think taking on from what Paroma has said, not only resilience, I mean, as mothers, when you're trying to balance home and you're trying to balance work, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But you choose your priorities and work accordingly. You work in an atmosphere which is giving, which is accommodating. And then I think you move on. So these are choices that one makes because you need to decide where you want to go and how you want to go. And there is no shortcut. Let me tell you, there is no shortcut to knowledge, to peer knowledge, to learning from each other. I mean, each of us have learned from each other. I mean, I don't think books have ever taught us how we should conduct ourselves actually in the market. And look at it from tier 2, tier 3 markets. We are very privileged. I mean, we are in the metros. We have a lot of mentors. We worked with a lot of people from whom we can learn. But look at tier 2, tier 3 guys. There's so much hunger in them. They don't have those opportunities. So it's an opportunity for us to get them into an inclusive, ecosystem where they can benefit from all of us.
Thank you. You all spoke about individual resilience and doubts. I want to just zoom out a little bit and talk about, because you also mentioned something about structural challenges. So I want you to sort of opine and just reflect on what are the structural challenges that disable the environment in such a way where you find women find it hard to then sort of not give up. Are there some disabling environments or issues as opposed to enabling issues where you see people falling off? I certainly refuse to believe that it's 100% because women don't want to do, right? And it may be 10%, but can we then think about a larger number of women who go up to the leadership position and not fall off the ladder, right? Where are the challenges today in organizations or structures where you feel it creates a more disabling environment as opposed to an enabling environment?
I'll just take the
Or
opportunity to.
we'll reverse back and then go back to Vidisha and we'll come back. And
So
swing back
just
again.
to add to, I mean, we've all talked about resilience. But there's one thing which I'm not sure how many of you will agree, but there's something called microaggression. How many of us would have faced that? And I'm sure at some point in time, each of us would have faced it. But to be resilient, to find a way out and move on is the way out of it. I mean, I'm sure each of us in our professions would have had issues with regard to that. How do you get out of it is something that you need to work because you have your own goal. Each person has his or her own goal. Giving up is easy. I mean, I'm sure.
So Pramod, outside of the women, so Jyotsna talked about the fact, stay the course, be a little bit more aggressive about what you want. Where are the issues outside of your control which disable you to succeed?
I will give a
Do
personal...
organizations
I
need to
will
do
give
things differently?
Two personal examples. I have worked for 33 years, about 8 years in journalism and 25 years in Corp. So I can call myself a little qualified to speak on this. One of the biggest editors in the business told me that I should give you a car at your rate, but I won't because your husband works for a multinational. I can give you a Zen. You already drive a Santro. Hello, it was bought with my own money. My husband had nothing to do with it. So he didn't give me the car. If I name, you will know he's one of the most enlightened editors in the business, but no longer, but till very recently. So that's what happened. I got money. I didn't get the car, which I deserved.
Right.
So, one.
So it's the way
I mean,
the men
you
are seeing the world.
I mean, what has my husband got to do with me? I mean, it's like, it's totally incidental or accidental.
Right.
Worse is much later. I mean, Airtel. I'm going to name the company because, a lot of people there knew about this. When I joined, there were only 2 women directors at that time. Me and somebody else who sat in a different building, and our Danish ombudsperson. There was no women's loo on that floor. There was a men's loo because Airtel board members used to go use that. There was no woman. So he said, one floor down, mobility has a very nice women's loo. Why don't you go there? I said, nothing doing. We need a loo here. And you have to thank me for this because when I said, look, I even told Sunil, there was an opportunity to talk to him. And I'm like, this is the situation. And the one block of the men's loo got destroyed and a woman's dismantled and a woman's loo got made. So if these are not structural challenges, what will those be? But I think the multinational companies that I have worked in, Google, SoftBank, GE, HP, they were all fantastically enabling environments. No real discrimination, subtle discrimination, yes. Yeah, microaggression, but you have to.
So Deepthi, I want to throw, it's a very interesting take that Paroma has done, and I'll just pick up from that. The view multinational corporations have as opposed to local-owned enterprises. Now, you've worked forever for a large multinational corporation, both in the news, BBC, and then for Ford, and went to the global level. But also as the CEO of PRCI, you see a lot of the domestic agencies, right, the consulting firms, and you see a large, most of them that are of worth in the country. What's your view in terms of the deterrence that exists within the system besides this sort of skewed view of the male leaders or the male board members against women, or just ignorance, simply ignorance?
Well, I think it all boils down to processes to me. I think where multinationals really stand out is solid processes. So there is very little room for discrimination. You go by the rule book. I think that's the opportunity. But to that point, having served in the US, if we think that when you're moving continents, you're taking just new challenges, it's not that easy. So you have to, I think, be very strong yourself. I still remember when I made the decision to go to US, my husband was working for IBM. We both were serving big leadership roles. Right. And people came to my cabin and said, are you moving? This is a very very bold decision, you know, moving around with the whole family and everything. That, of course, scared me. And when you get in there in an environment, you feel you are in such a different culture. So you have to adjust to the work, you have to adjust to the processes, you have to adjust to your personal lot of things and manage that. But I think it's the process of the organizations which help you come through. So I think that is the difference I see in the agencies. We still are in a, can I call it a nascent stage? It's good to see now we have a diversity. We have large, we have mid, we have small ones, but I think there is no compromises on this. One question I a lot of time ask the founders, like I got an opportunity being in the MNC to take a global role. How many of you are offering that? How many of you are taking, like is Edelman taking its people to Asia and Singapore, is Rudolphins, and you know, you have to create that, and that can only happen if you have succession plans, if you have things like that which allows personal growth in a real manner. So seeing at the PRCI level, I think we got to move from running businesses to running professional setups. So I think that's the big opportunity I feel, which can help change, lift the industry. And I feel really proud, again to my point, there are a lot of male founders who are doing a phenomenal job. There are a lot of female founders who are doing a phenomenal job. Just bring in processes as quickly. And one point I'm going to make is we don't have 25 next years for the change. If we have not done in the next 5, we have missed the boat. Our profession is at that point that professionalism is the word, and from P to the N, we have to accept every word of it.
How nice is that? Vidisha, I'm going to swing to Bipasha, sorry.
I think you know my sister. She's
Yes.
Vidisha. So,
Well,
yeah, okay.
well, she probably worked with me for a long period of time. So, Bipasha, my apologies. You work for an American multinational organization, transnational organization, which cuts across boundaries, cultures, and your business is culture. As an organization, from a domestic, and I'm going to come back to Josna because she works for a domestic business as opposed to multinational. With this whole thing that's going on in the United States around diversity, inclusion, and sort of taking a little, dialing down on that, and then where is this view that you see? Will that have an impact on the ability of the women to take the charge, or do you think that merit eventually must shine without these sort of enabling systems?
I mean, there are two ways to look at it. One is, I completely agree with Paroma in terms of if there is a role, may the best person win, irrespective of the gender. But as we zoom out, there is a reason why historically the corporate, world over, globally, has talked about DEI, right? Because some of the stories that we are hearing today, not having a toilet on the same floor. I remember there was a movie about it where, there were no toilets and they had to go to
This
another.
is called Numbers.
Yeah.
It's Kevin Costner.
Yeah. Hidden Figures, yeah,
Hidden
thank
Figures,
you.
yes.
Yeah.
Hidden Figures. Yeah.
I didn't, I would imagine that was a very different time period, but I'm really, really surprised to hear that story because it's really brutal.
That was at NASA, incidentally.
Yes, it was at NASA. So,
Women
and
of
women
color.
of color, and that
Interesting
happening, repeating itself, and hearing a version of that is absolutely brutal. Yeah, but I think there are a couple of things. One is, fundamentally, while yes, the glass ceiling is cracked, it's not yet shattered. It's far from that. And some of it seems very, very commonsensical, fundamental, but it happens. Example, hasn't happened with me, but I know of somebody in my team who was applying for a global role, a single mom. And one of the big advice that and it was a Europe-based MNC, and one of the advice she was told that, look at your life stage, you're a single mom, a single child, focus on bringing up your son. Think about it before you take that role. A man would never be given that advice that think about your daughter enrolling in kindergarten, but it happens. Second, when inclusion becomes a HR domain, it misses from core governance. Inclusion should be a CEO's job, not a HR rule book. not a box to be ticked. Third, when we talk about, I won't call it a boys' club, but when you talk about networking, a woman needs to go home, cook, feed mother-in-law, father-in-law, whoever. But and sometimes there are women who can't go out and network over a golf on a Sunday morning. Is that something that is actually creating a very subtle barrier? Nobody is going to talk about it. And the fourth, which I think women impose upon themselves. Most of the women, and I spent 25 years in the industry, I mentor a lot of young, mid-range, mid-level women. They only come and ask me, I need a mentor. I said, great, you need a mentor. Who is your sponsor? A mentor is going to teach you, it's a learning agility that they're going to show you. But who is going to champion you in rooms that you are not? So why don't you ask for a sponsor in the same breath as you ask for a mentor? A guy does it. I'm sorry, a man employee does it. Who's going to talk about me? Which role am I going to get next? A woman will only come and ask you to be, can I get mentorship? That is exactly what
Go
they
ahead,
need to
Jyotsna.
demand.
Why don't you add to that?
So because that's because you have fewer sponsorships for women. And more importantly, I think, while you say that the organization I work in, we have very few women. She's talking about a time probably 10 years ago. I'm talking about now. Yeah, I'm talking about now. We still have about 3% women workforce. And senior leadership is very few, So when we have opportunities that are there where we have to go and represent ourselves or we need to talk about DEI, we shy away from talking because it doesn't make sense. Where are we? It's a cultural shift. It's not transformation. Like you've said, it cannot be a tick in the box. You have to have a cultural shift to be able to accept. And it has to be based on merit. It cannot be based on a DEI role that is there, which is specially created, which will obviously be the HR roles, the other, the ancillary roles that I would call it, but that's not how it should be. In a lot of companies, especially in the business we are into, most of the salespeople, you won't find a single woman sales person in our organization. So that's a huge distance we need to cover. So these are experiences that are there.
All right, so Prabha, before I ask the next question, your point.
My point is that don't wait for others to create opportunities for you. It doesn't happen. You step up, ask for something, you might get turned down. Quite often you are. But then, if you don't ask, who will? One of my male bosses told me that he wanted me to fill up 3 pages of appraisal or something. I'm like, I don't have time. So he said, if you don't write, who will? Why don't you understand? Step up, be authentic, build your personal brand. I can't, underline this more. I'm not saying you do LinkedIn updates. No.
So you're saying that you need to be an advocate and champion of your own self more than anybody else because nobody else is going to.
And women are
And that's
not-
the same point you're making
Yeah.
about sponsorship.
Women are not good at it, Ashwin.
But here's I have like 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and I want to ask something interesting. In public relations, 25 years, 20 years, 20, 30 years, 20 plus years, right? Public relations, Indian public relations. 70% women, only 30% leadership role. Are women enemies of women themselves? Bipasha, with you, and then I want to get views.
I think we can do a better job of sponsorship of women. We hear say, pick as you rise. I think we really need to, we've talked about it. I think we really need to put that in practice much more aggressively.
I think it's all about support. You have to support your peer to grow and move forward.
So you don't have enough forums for women supporting. So to that extent.
No, it's about going and asking.
So
It's
women
about
in
making
PR is a
yourself
good
heard.
platform there.
Yeah.
Paroma?
Yeah.
I have had 4 fabulous bosses, 2 men, 2 women. So we are absolutely open. Having said that, I think we can do a better job of supporting each other. So if there was a forum, and I'm leaving this thought also with people, if there was a forum where we can come together as peers and discuss much more, rather than giving Gyan, it'll really help.
So, Paroma, no, we have the forums, but the question is who's attending those forums? यही फोरम है. आज हम 30 under 30 की बात कर रहे हैं, पर इस रूम में कितने 30 under 30 हैं? That's the point. I think what women or whoever needs to do, we are having this conversation with the people who know where the issues are. We need to have the conversations with the people who don't know it. So I think while the forums are there, I
Interesting.
feel women or whoever, your growth is in your own hands. I would just simply say that. If you are not asking, if you're not in the right places, if you're not making time to look at your own competency chart, if I'm lacking in something, if I don't know that, if I don't acknowledge and I'm not working on it, you yourself are shattering
That's a
roadmap.
gender agnostic view, right? Because whether you're a male or a female, you have to be meritorious. But you're saying women need to do a lot more because they get to be undervalued or underestimating
You need
themselves.
to have a lot of drive.
Can I
think that drive
add
has
to
to
that?
come from
Cheryl
within.
was very popular in saying this, that women fear likability. Women often face likability penalty. The moment a woman is assertive and she speaks her mind, I'm sorry for my
She's
language and
over-aggressive.
French, she is the B word.
Correct.
Whereas a man is supposed to be assertive.
Out there.
This is what, and by the way, the
Yes,
ones who
I
are
agree with
also
you.
doing that likability penalty are women in the room. So I think we need to be honest and acknowledge that there has to be a little bit that still needs to be done.
So in the last 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I want to spend a little bit time on your personal journey. And to make it crisp, one point that you think aided you the most in your journey, and the one point that you think you could have done differently in your journey of this ladder of success.
My journey hasn't been too exciting. I'm a communicator by accident. I was studying to be a chef. Because I studied something else and got into an area which I had no clue, I think I pushed myself out of comfort zone, and I continue doing it as I look through my 25
So push yourself
years.
out of the comfort zone.
My comfort zone
big
of
one.
knowing something, being in the domain that I studied, but I actually got into a space where I had
One thing
absolute-
that you would have done differently.
I think there are some lessons which I learned later in life, like advocating for myself. I wish I knew
earlier.
how to do it much earlier in life.
Thank you. Dipti.
Well, for me, I would say there are, while it may seem that every of our careers are so illustrious, right? Everybody has hardships. So we need to go through that. I remember once I used to write in my cabin, just do it. You know, the Nike mantra, every day I would come in, and especially when you're in a global environment, you have to do so differently that you would say, just do it. So just recognizing that that's the opportunity, you've got the chance, you have to prove it, that's what you
The
got to
lights
do.
shine bright, but people don't see the school of hard knocks that you attended. Right, I get that. Paroma, what about you?
Exactly. I mean, I'm not, apologies, but I'm not a big fan of Sheryl Sandberg for a number of reasons. But I completely believe what she said, that when a man is assertive, you are aggressive. I'm sorry, a man is a stud and you're a slut. So, I mean, you know, so that's why.
So what made you successful, and what would
Again,
you have
I
done
mean, you know,
differently?
That is what? I mean, I have always been aggressive, assertive.
So that
maybe
was your important.
branded as aggressive like 80% of the time. But, so I have resilience. So assertiveness and resilience have been my success factors. What I could have done differently, maybe tone down the aggression a little. And I think I could have done better job of navigating uncertainty, not uncertainty. Yeah, last 6 months. I've been actually, not last 6 months, 5 months. I've been toying with the idea of what should I do? Should I go run a business? Should I become an entrepreneur? Should I take another job? Should I become an advisor? I'm in the fortunate position of having many choices. But I think this ambiguity, I could have navigated a little better.
Well, this year is 3 decades of you having met each other. So I know exactly what you're saying. So Joe, over to you. Your own personal journey, one big part of your that contributed to your success that you did, and something that you would want to have done differently.
My first boss was Vandana Sandhi. She's sitting over here.
Oh, there you are,
And
Andy.
my first appraisal that I had was a
Enterprise peer.
Enterprise.
Oh, wow.
So it was an abysmal appraisal that I had, and I went up to Vandana and I said, "How can somebody give me an appraisal like this?" So she said, "That's because you didn't speak for yourself." And I thought at that point in time that my work will speak for itself. And that is the biggest learning I have had. And I tell this to everybody who comes to me, is that you have that one window, make use of it and speak for yourself.
Thank
so
you.
that, even if it is 15 minutes, speak for yourself and make your point clear. I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, Paroma, last word.
Be authentic and be yourself. And if you try to be someone else, you'll not succeed. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Bipasha, Deepti, Paroma, and Josna. Many, many thanks to you. Engaging conversation, but we could spend the whole evening having this conversation, sir. Thank you very much.